Okay, I decided to do my video analysis on the graphic novel slash comic and animated film Nimona. The story is a bit different for each version, but the basics of it are a guy named Ballister, who everyone thinks is an absolute monster of a man, teams up with a rebellious girl named Nimona, who has the ability to transform into different creatures and people. Together while on the run from Ballister's ex-ish lover, Ambrosius Goldenloin, Nimona and Ballister grow close as friends. Along the way, they expose the director of the institution to the people, and Nimona ends up going into a kind of destructive rage. But in the end, the real bad guys are stopped. The original comic to me felt very fast-paced. There were a couple time skips, which sped things up quite a bit. And with structure, the chapters, of course, helped with that. The artwork felt very minimal slash relaxed. It was really good. I enjoyed it, but it also felt like something I could do, which is a positive. I'm not the best at drawing, and I'm not trying to be mean about the artwork, but it kind of inspired me. It felt like a real person, not like somebody who had spent years mastering art, wanted to tell a story, and they got to using their style of drawing. The panel layout was pretty normal. There's nothing really to note about it. I think there was one full page art, and I kind of wish there was more. The colors are pretty cool too. I think the main message slash theme is that people are more complex than they originally seem, which is always a good message and story to get out there. One strength that I was surprised about was that the comic showed more violence than the animated film, which I consider a strength because it allows different type of audience to reach this comic versus the animated film, which still falls under the prejudice in many people's head of animated films are made for kids. So I think the violence allows the comic to reach different audiences, as I said before. When you adapt something, you obviously are going to make changes, and one of those changes, I think, is to the character of Ballister. First off, in the comic, he's called Ballister Blackheart, but in the movie, he's called Ballister Boldheart. And in the movie, he isn't an actual villain, and instead was framed for the Queen's murder, and he doesn't blame Ambrosius for cutting off his arm, versus in the comics where Ambrosius blows up his arm, and Ballister just kind of is evil after he gets kicked out. Also, in the movie, he doesn't kill anyone, even while trying to defend Nimona, while in the comic, he does kill people and even kills a guard while trying to defend Nimona. Another thing that changed in the animated version is Nimona's backstory. In the comic, a little bit more is revealed about her backstory, but in the movie, it's completely hard to tell what's real and what's not. We get, like, the main event where she fights Glorith, but other than that, we don't actually get her backstory. That's just an event that's happened in her life. We don't see how she gets like this. Also, the rampage bit I mentioned earlier is a bit different. In the comic, Nimona is angry and is taking it out on the city and the people and the king, versus the movie where she's just emotionally distressed and is actually trying to kill herself by using a statue to impale herself. And in the movie, Ballister actually stops her from doing so, instead of in the comic where he literally fights her and thinks he kills her or thinks an explosion kills her. And, of course, that's how she seems to die in the comic versus in the movie when she instead sacrifices herself to save the citizens from the director. I think something stayed the same, which is the director still being the real bad guy, the story of Glorith fighting a monster and being honored about it. Ballister and Nimona's relationship is pretty similar throughout the two iterations, and Ambrosius and Ballister being together is also consistent. However, in the comic, it's revealed much later or kind of hinted at versus in the animated film where it's shown in one of the first scenes. So I think these changes were made because it really gives the characters a more complexity and allows us to get a deeper insight into them, which is why the animated film is so much better. It also gives the story a more emotional impact compared to the comic, and it better connects the audience to the world and to the characters involved in it. So the film adaptation is mainly 3D animated, but it also has some 2D elements and techniques put into it. It's a very unique and it's visually striking. I really enjoy the design and the look of everything. It's also incredibly detailed, even though at first glance it doesn't really seem like that. When it comes to the voice acting is amazing. I really think that Amir and Chloe did a great job as Ballister and Nomona, as well as other characters. Eugene did a great job as Ambrosia. And the only issue that I had was Beck Bennett was a little annoying to me just because I've heard his voice so much. Or it wasn't annoying, but it was distracting. But that's a personal thing, and it's not really the film's fault. I think the story is a 10 out of 10. It's absolutely amazing. In such a short time span, it made me care so deeply about these characters, and I got really invested into the world as well. It's easily one of my favorite animated films I've seen. I think some strengths it has is, I think the shorter runtime is actually a strength and a blessing. I think it helped concise the story better, and because the comic felt very dragged out and slow at sometimes, but the movie was very short and precise. But that's also a problem because I really like these characters, and I would love to have seen a longer film take more advantage of the run time in order to make me care even more about these characters. I really want to see what they would have done with more time. In conclusion, I think the animated version is much more effective and not only sharing the original message of the comic, but even adding new important messages and layers that are more relevant to today. I also watched the animated film before I read the comic, and when I read the comic, I was almost disappointed. I still thought it was really good and I liked it, but the animated film is just leagues ahead, and I just think it's amazing compared to the original source material. I also think that different mediums can make a story more reachable or appealing to people than another specific medium.